people called pre-Socratics. Not only that they came before Socrates, but the ideas they had were not yet developed on the level of Socrates. And I would like to call to your attention to the fact that, would you not agree, you saw many of the ideas basic to Platonic thought already in Heraclitus. Participation of one, the idea of intelligence and wisdom being one, Zeus is the highest concept, the theory of participation, that intelligence is divine and man only gains it by participating, a whole theory of participation. And therefore, I don't see any basis for arguing that there is this development going on. Rather, it looks like it's sprung full, not complete, not that Plato and other thinkers didn't add and amplify it. The difficulty is that all we have is the fragments, and the fragments themselves indicate a very deep richness where there is a kinship between the Socratic, Platonic tradition and these thinkers that preceded them, especially Heraclitus. Now we have these three methods, remember? Right? Moderns go for authorities, and unfortunately a good number of them frame their thought of Heraclitus from Aristotle. We would argue, would we not, from this, that the second method of hermeneutical method, from Proclus, Aristarchus, and Priscianus, is the one that should really be used, which is, if you're going to study these people, get as much as you can from them, but then look for people who have achieved the summit of their knowledge of that thinker. And then, if you have, then go back to the original work with the insights you've attained, and then test them. That's the second. Now, that's what Priscianus did when he was studying the idea of the soul, and he went to Iamblichus, and he did that great work on the soul. That's what he did. That's the method he used. But Iamblichus and Plotinus did not use this method. They, and that's the third method, right? The third method. And the third method is much interesting, isn't it? Plotinus went out and he shaped his own vision by the tools of Platonic thought. And then on the basis of what he did understand and grasp through his mystical encounters with mind and mind itself, he then did the work called the Enneads. Iamblichus did the same thing. He had his own vision. He was a student of the same Platonic tradition, but he delved into the same thing on an experiential realm as well as understanding, so he brought his own experience plus his understanding, and on the basis of that he created the work he did. And that, therefore, which is really interesting, he then went back and looked at Aristotle and said, I can make sense out of Aristotle better than he could himself, because I can take the fragments there and I can rework them into a much more consistent and coherent vision. But he did that because he then reached the level of experience and understanding and crafted a better Aristotle perhaps than Aristotle could have done. Who knows whether that's accurate. But you can certainly say he added a great depth to it. Same thing with Plotinus. Now, Proclus did not. Proclus did not. It doesn't come out of his own experience. It comes out of a great deal out of Cyrenius. And therefore, what we want to do in the modern world, in our world, is go for three. Train people for vision, bring them back into the wisdom tradition, let them go through these works, let them take advantage of 1, 2, develop 3, and gain and continue this wisdom tradition. And that's the goal of, I believe, true philosophy.
Proclus didn't have experience and understanding?
I didn't say he didn't have understanding.
Okay.
I said that he continuously says that he's drawing on people who came before him, especially his teacher Cyrenius. In the end of at the end of the Parmenides in what's called the K section, he does talk about the need for individual experience, but he doesn't bring that to us, and though he does acknowledge the need for it, and if you want to take a good look at it, I would recommend you looking at it. It's called the K section at the end of Proclus's commentary on Plato's Parmenides.
There is a possibility of understanding this material without experience?
I don't hear, without what?
Without experience? Understanding.
That's what, wait a minute. Yeah, yes, of course. Is there a way of understanding this material without experience? Yes, that's writing commentaries on what other people have said and thought. That's what we do in the colleges. That's what they do in the colleges. No one says what you must do is sharpen your intellect to the point where you can use it as a vehicle for seeing, so you can see things similar to what Plato, Plotinus, and Proclus saw, and these people saw, and then take that vision you've had, or that experience of the nature of reality, and craft it back into this tradition, so you can then express what these former thinkers thought in a much more interesting and varied way, perhaps enrich it. No, we don't do that in college or university.
Your assumptions.
How could you understand Plato and not have insight?
That's easy. Just go to any university and they'll bore you to death.
Yeah, but that's not understanding though, is it?
Yes, it is. It's a kind of understanding. It's being able to say what... Well, and in many cases you don't read Plato in many universities. The instructor will tell you what Plato says, so it's one step removed from it. But in the classes where you can do it, you're not encouraged to look for the method of Plato, to explore it yourself, and then come back on the basis of some enriched experience, write a commentary on it. That's not normally done. And as a matter of fact, I don't know any school where it would be acceptable, unless it was a rhetoric class or English composition. We train scholars. We don't train people for vision.
Yeah, I can understand.
That's the purpose of the university.
But I'm understanding that you're saying Proclus does not, or didn't have the experience, or am I misunderstanding?
If you read Proclus, you do not hear him, read him, you don't see in his comments that this comes from his own vision. When he does talk about people and vision, he talks about it from other people, especially his teachers. In the end of, as I said, at the end of the conclusion of the Parmenides, look at section K, where he does talk about the need for experience, and he outlines what he thinks is a method. He does not say that he explored it on that level and went back into the text and found this and that because of that experience. You might assume it, but Plotinus does. Plotinus says that's what he did, right?
Like there's a set of the soul.
Yeah, yes, in the Descent of the Soul, and in many other places, and beauty on the one. He adds to it immeasurably out of his own experience.
I guess I'm puzzled as to even if he is quoting and he is making commentaries and using other people's expressions, Proclus that is, that there isn't a degree or some kind of a level of experience that goes along with that, such that it is intelligible. Is he a tape recorder?
How can we conclude from reading a section on Proclus that whatever it is he's writing in any particular point that interests you, whether that's the basis of reflection and understanding on the text and on his teacher's texts rather than on his own experience? Contrariwise, when can you see that he's really concluding on the basis of his own private experience and not deriving the basis of those statements from teachers that he's